All right. Welcome to the first broadcast of the Solidarity News Radio. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Fresh, and I'm Eric. Now,
Hello, I'm Mr. Fresh.
I'm here with the Admiral Jackson of the Navy Fleet of the CSA, the Combined Syndicate Army. Jackson, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Sorry.
All
All
right,
right.
here he is.
Now, the number one question: what is going on with the fleet right now with the CSA? What's going on?
Currently, I am still working on, we're calling it a naval census, basically seeing what ships we have from the chaos of the Civil War and the different ragtag navies that were set up between the different members. Um, we have to do a large census to see what we have before we can really organize the Navy very well.
Okay. Um, what are you guys doing with the riding and the small terrorist attacks going on the naval coastlines?
So currently, um, I did not know of that situation. I'll have to bring it up with my staff. Um, but hearing that will most likely speed up the establishment of a coast guard to deal with those threats and also to protect the coastlines of this great nation.
All right. Are you in hold of the commander of the army of the CSA? Has anything on this subject or what's going on with the army?
Not yet. After the retirement of Smedley Butler, the army became disorganized while we were uh, dealing with internal threats and internal militias and internal security bureaus. Um, they they got much more funding and much more priority uh, than the army. Uh, though the current administration, we are looking into rebuilding the army and organizing it, um, and turning our focus from internal militias into a proper fighting force. The army into a proper fighting force.
Okay. So, do you have any other questions, fresh for him to ask?
Not particularly from this moment. After what you said, that seems to be pretty good. I know some people might be a little resistant to the whole making a new army thing, since there's a lot of anarchists who would rather have a more decentralized military. But I don't know if you would have a comment on that.
So yes, sadly, the revolution is not always united, especially after the revolution occurs. Um, there are internal divisions between the anarchists and the statist members of the Revolutionary Council. But most anarchists that I have spoken to, especially in the government, they all agree that we need at least some sort of fighting force. They disagree on how it should be run and organized, and that shall have to be a debate, whether in the Constitution or later once we get the Constitution passed. Um, uh, but currently, at least, it is my opinion that I'm not an anarchist, and I think we need a strong military to protect us from, especially the second Weltkrieg going on in the world, which we need to not only protect ourselves from possible threats from Mexico or Canada, but also protect the revolution abroad in France and Britain and Indochina.
Of course, of course.
So, quick question then, Admiral Jackson. Were you gonna are you gonna keep Philadelphia and New York, you guys' main fleet at the capital of your fleet, or are you gonna have one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast?
So, as I said, currently we're still in the starting phases of organizing the Navy and essentially seeing what ships we have. Um, but it is we're planning, and it is expected that we'll have an Atlantic fleet and a Pacific fleet. The Atlantic fleet most likely will be stationed at Norfolk, like it has been in the previous United States. And while the Pacific fleet, there is still debate on where it will be stationed, but it's most likely looking like it'll be stationed at San Diego. Um, yeah.
So, would you be a little afraid to have a station at one in San Diego with they used to be a major Armada fleet stationed there from the Pacific State of America? Like, what do
That's
you,
the. Oh, no.
like you have any trouble with like? Would you expect any more trouble with anybody trying to attack your fleet at that station, or everything seems to
Yeah,
So,
be
right. TSA
um,
dissidents.
yeah,
yeah?
yeah, okay. Uh, so luckily, the PSA distance are not as difficult to deal with as the longest distance. The PSA, their main goal was to essentially safeguard the republic and safeguard democracy. While the economic system varies greatly from what we want to establish, the government does not differ. So while there is still partisan activity, it's not as extreme as the longest. Um, and the one of the reasons we are picking San Diego is because of the pre-existing fleet infrastructure that's already there. They already have dry docks, they already have docking yards, and a large port facility.
It does sound good.
It sounds feasible. Um, all right. I have with us is Sergeant Leo from the East Coast Militia. Sergeant Leo,
Ah,
how is the East Coast militia doing?
well, we've been having to put up with Canadian invasion.
And
Whoa.
Excuse me, but I have not heard any reports of a Canadian invasion. I think that would
I
reach my
think
office very fast.
let me correct you, Sergeant Leo. Are you saying invasion, or are you trying to actually use the term conflict?
Well,
Like
border
skirmishes.
conflict.
Yeah, yeah, like scrimmages. So, like, are you having some conflict or scrimmage on the border between Canada
Yes.
and okay, okay. So you have a small. Can you name a couple areas for us
Well, New York is one.
on the border of New York with New England?
Yes.
Okay, that's not Canada. That's
I
New
expect nothing
England.
less.
So
Yeah.
Well, aren't
that's
they
a
the
little
same
mis.
place?
Uh, it is
And
of
puppet to the
um,
Canadian government.
at least it is of um, how do I say this? New England have been integrated into the CSA. There was a large uprising by socialists in New England, led by the previous SDLU leader. Um, and Canada, while angry at the socialist revolution, realized that all of their resources were being put into the Second Weltkrieg and couldn't do anything about it. And reunification happened within the next month.
All right. So most likely you're dealing small conflicts with the militia groups from the old New England militia. Um, can you can you name like certain places in New York like of having these conflicts, like Buffalo or some
Near
a place like
Albany.
that? Okay, okay,
Albany. All right.
all right. So can you give me a rough estimate of how often you have in this conflicts?
About every 5 minutes.
Eh,
No.
That's a little extreme.
Every 5 days or
Every.
5 minutes
Okay.
sometimes.
Okay, that sounds a little more.
That's still
That,
pretty bad.
that it is pretty bad, but that's usually caused by small terrorist
Yeah, I would
activists.
assume, especially from a place like New England.
Yeah, yeah. And see, that's more of like a terrorist organization, a
I
terrorist
expect.
activist.
I expect Canada to be supporting these actions by these radicals and reactionaries. 'Cause, yeah, I would assume, especially from a place like New England. Yeah, I would assume, especially from a place like New England. I expect Canada to be supporting these actions by these radicals and reactionaries. 'Cause, yeah, I would assume, especially from a place like New England.
All right. So
If I may speak for the Army High Command slash government, um, yes, it is one of our major concerns, which a lot of these rebels, including the longest partisans, are being funded by Canada. We, I
All right, hold
shouldn't
on, hold
make
on. You
this
saying being
public.
funded by Canada? Are you saying by the government of Canada or just some small organizations through Canada?
They're being funded by the government of Canada.
All right, so
That
there's
is our
okay,
intelligence, not openly, however.
okay. So your assumption or interpretation of the perception of it is perhaps through the government. Um, all right, we'll check up on that and see if Canada has anything to say about that when we get a hold of them. Um, so we'll talk to King Edwards and see what he says.
Hmm.
Well, for right now, we're gonna take a 5 minute break, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Can you hear us now?
We're back. All right. Sorry for the
Yes,
long
sir.
intermission. I'm back. I'm here with the acting uh,
General Secretary.
General Secretary John Reed. John Reed, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Conrad John Jack Silas Reed. Um, I'm the current General Secretary of the CSA and representing the CWRAC party that is currently in power. Thank you for having me on the show, and what would you like to ask me, Conrad?
We're
Welcome.
glad to have you.
Welcome,
Thank
Reed.
you, sir.
Now I have a question. Is that what is your being active, um, secretary? What's your main policy you want to do to bring Americans back to jobs? Like, what
I
policy?
believe we should basically give the control of the factories to the workers. Therefore, they can get wealthy and can basically help industry. This will basically be run by labor unions. And to be honest, it's going to bring wealth. Because back then, the bosses were the people controlling the wealth in the industry. Now it is the workers themselves having access to the wealth. And I think with this policy in mind, we can be able to restore the economy of the CSA back to its original state. Therefore,
Oh,
it will work, and I hope that it can fully do a good job.
all right. I understand that you want to bring the power back to the people, and I'm grateful for that. But is the government gonna give any form of subsidies or any form of guidance to get help the people to rebuild the factories?
I'm going to bring up a point by Next Machno, who I've learned. Essentially, he basically said at some point that to each according his need. Therefore, the job of the worker will be according to his talent and his needs. Basically, if he is good at being a metalworking, if
Oh,
he's good at being metalworking, then he can basically work in a factory, metal factory.
I'm not asking about
Yes,
people
sir. Sorry,
the people
sorry.
to work. I understand that you're trying to get people back to work, but how are we gonna pay for it? Are we gonna uh, activate a excessive order to subsidize these factories so we can actually bring them back up, or we're gonna allow the people
Indeed,
to do fundraisers to bring back the jobs?
I would suggest a fundraiser that will basically go all around the new CSA promoting our order to basically bring back jobs. And essentially, this will help us raise the necessary funds to bring the factories back up to service and to continue to fulfill the economic needs.
All right. Well, what happens if people are having a little trouble with earn, gathering up money to rebuild the factories? Should the government intervene and add some form of subsidies to balance the system out?
I think we should add some subsidies to them, like laying some money aside to give to those impoverished people in order to help them better. And that's how I intend on counteracting this negative thing,
what are the
if you
additional?
can say that right.
What's there going to be the additional subsidies would be? Like other programs. Like, are you implying there will be other programs if people are in need, like food programs?
Of course, like food distribution across major impoverished areas that have been devastated by the Civil War
Well,
after the defeat. Yes.
and what about the farmers? Are you gonna give them some form of do some form of excessive order for Farmers Act, something like that? Like you're gonna give them some form of guidance and subsidies to help create rebuild the farmland and bring workers to the farmland back?
I think that will happen. I will basically help we will guide the farmers. The Central Committee will guide them in with economic and financial support
Okay.
on my gracious behalf.
Can you give me like an estimate how much you gonna provide for the people, or are you gonna focus heavily on it, or are you gonna do small little subsidy programming of
I
give
think it's better to start out small than to eventually
solely okay?
build up.
Are we gonna have any form of taxation for these programs?
Taxation is theft. and
taxation.
it is a remnant of the capitalist system that we've just abolished.
Okay, okay. So how is the federal government fund itself, like to bring
I
revenue
think we will
into the?
fund ourselves using the wealth from the workers will basically be funneled into the new People's Bank, which will basically help with the CSA government and essentially fund our nation and its economy to the fullest extent it can. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, okay. Do you have any other questions for Reed?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
this is more about the war-torn areas, specifically the south of the United States, which has been utterly destroyed due to the longest radicalism and reactionary policies that they implemented during the war. Uh, will you do anything special for these areas? Will you have a special, I don't know, economic fund or some such for the southern areas that have been ravaged by the war?
Hmm. As a result, I just want to say that Reconstruction would be available. I mean, to be fair, we did it the first time back in the original. Now, I will quote this sentence by my comrade E.T. Galaxy. Um, he basically, oh, never mind. Let's say we do Reconstruction. We need to funnel back jobs, the union, and more basically economic opportunity for the impoverished people of the South. I believe with the right amount of time and effort, we will eventually build back the South for the workers of America. And I believe that I don't. I know that the South won't like us, but we have to teach the generations of the South that we are not the bad guys. We are trying to help them. We are trying to implement Reconstruction to basically reintegrate them peacefully back in and to prevent a second uprising of the Kingfish and his America First thugs. So if you want to ask me any more questions surrounding this topic, then please be free to
Uh,
basically put it forward.
that
I
gets
am planning to.
that gets to me. The point is, like Fresh has brought up about the South. What about the West Coast? Are you gonna do this roughly the same thing for the Pacific state of America that was?
I think I will. I basically think that the people have not seen the true power of the Union. I believe that the unions should have a say in how to reconstruct, given that they've been under the last remnants of capitalist society. We must build these areas back up with the guidance of the unions and the Central Committee, with financial aid and workers' aid, and with financial aid and the construction of new industrial areas that will promise us bigger profits and better industry and stability. Therefore, giving that money back to the workers and basically reestablishing the South and eventually economic and political reintegration.
All right. Last question. Are you gonna be running for another election, or this is your only time you're gonna be doing the election?
I think I will run up for re-election if the people want to. I understand um if I had the chance to, I would do it again and possibly do even better. Now, to be fair, I may not be a good choice. It might not be perfect, but to be honest, we are doing our best. I'm careful not to let the same mistakes that destroyed America to destroy this new red America. Um, now, if you, now basically, as General Secretary, it's my obligation to help the working class, whether it be in the newly reclaimed areas of the South of the West or the new areas of the Red Belt. So I basically plan on reconstructing these areas for the benefit of America and the revolution of syndicalism.
All right, sounds pretty good. Hopefully, you keep up on that promise. Thank you. Uh,
Thank you, sir.
all right, have a good one then, John Reed.
Yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner Jackson, what you have to say?
About these the things that John Reed was
So,
talking about.
um, as SDLU lead, the leader of the SDLU, Social Democrats Leader United, or as Social Democrat League United, I was not the person who made the name. Um, I'm of the opinion that um, the general secretary's plan is too vague. That I'm not insulting him, and I'm not discrediting his plan, but I think it is much too vague for um, America. So
Hmm.
I would like to detail my plan to if I were to theoretically be in the general secretary's position um,
Hmm.
uh, to uh, to rebuild America and to make it into a shining syndicalist city um, of the world.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
let me ask you, are of you two, are you two going to be focused
Hmm.
on any form of transportation, rebuilding transportation, and if so, are you going to focus on one or the other, or both? Are you going to focus on individual transportation like cars and trucks, or are you going to or the highways, or are you going to focus on transway? Um,
So, sorry, uh,
yeah, I was
Hmm.
just trying
I'll
to
let you go
clarify.
first,
our
and then I'll go first.
our okay,
Let me clarify one
uh,
thing.
okay.
When I'm saying trans way, I'm bringing up as like focus on air
Multiple.
travel, sea or through trains or subways, or any forms like that.
So my plan, this is one of the major segments of it. Um, our current transportation system, even before the Civil War, was abysmal and not up to snuff to what we need to be at.
How come you say
And
that? I want to wonder how come you say that? Because what I seen before the war, um, it was stating is transportation was going smoothly, pretty well until the war started off and rails were being bombarded and sabotaged by multiple groups.
so it is not up to snuff to what we will need as of currently. It may have been sufficient at that point, but it is not sufficient to what we need currently. And the Civil War did not help that. It destroyed almost all the infrastructure in large portions of the nation. So, if I am to be elected into office and my plan put into place, large amounts of government funding will be put into giving grants to states to build new highways
Yep.
and infrastructure,
I'll be
including
back.
railways,
Just gonna cut out.
and including ferry routes. And we are looking into it is currently very untested and currently an expensive way to travel, but we are looking into establishing public airlines
All right,
so
all right,
people will be able to fly through the air.
I highly like this idea, Admiral Jackson.
It's a radical position.
It is a radical position. You were actually correct, Fresh. But my main issue on this, how are you gonna pay for it? Like, what's your main way you're gonna focus on substitute this? Like, how are you gonna raise the money to fund these types of programs? I love the programs; they're great, but how are you gonna raise it?
Good question. So, uh, at this, for the first few years, possibly even the first half decade of when my plan goes into place, we will not have the funds to fund all of the new infrastructure, and that is a part of the plan. First, we need to focus on rebuilding not only the industrial capacity of the nation, but also the economic heart of it. That's why, for the first few years, and possibly it will depend year by year, possibly even for the first decade of the plan, that we will focus almost entirely on rebuilding jobs and rebuilding industrial infrastructure. So we can tax that fairly significantly and rebuild the infrastructure of this country, possibly slowly. It depends on the tax money that does come in. Possibly we will be able to have a um, complete highway network that can get you across the nation in 3 days
That's
within a
that's
few
a
years.
that's a very that's very interesting. I'd like to get onto that subject a little later, like how you're going to achieve that. But Fresh, do you have any other things to bring up to him, to Admiral Jackson?
Uh, not particularly. I think the idea of having mass highways is protruded by a few other sources, so I think it should be implemented if possible,
Okay.
if on in our region.
John Reed, what do you think of this? Like, what's your view, and what would you do to counter this?
I will counter this by basically reconstructing the entire railroad system from east to west, north to south. Now, the way I would do it is to allocate some money, the people's bank, into the reconstruction of this railroad. I will also be focusing on the building of multiple inexpensive but highly efficient vehicles, much like the Volkswagen that is being developed in Germany. Essentially, I plan on using the factories in Detroit and other cities among the Rust Belt like Philadelphia to help assist in building these automobiles. When I do, basically enough to basically for every citizen of the CSA to have. As for the railroads, I plan to reconstruct to basically reconnect trade and commerce alongside of the highway system along this highway system, which I will call the Red Line, essentially allowing for war-torn areas to cash in on the trade of the newly reconstructed highways and railroads. Um, on my opinion on the airlines, I think it's a good idea. I think we could use new technologies to further unite the American worker and to basically raise money back up and to pump that money into the economy. Essentially, this will basically reconstruct our economies even further and basically plunge us into a golden era of syndicalism for all workers. Now, I hope you guys like it, and I would like to see your response to this. Yes,
Um,
sir.
I enjoy it. My main issue with you too is you haven't flushed out
Mm,
how you're gonna fund these with what type of programs will be funded. Like, are you gonna? I understand that Admiral Jackson brought up about some form of a light taxation, but it's very little, like, or some
yes.
form of taxation, not exactly taxation, but some form of uh, raise an allowance to pay for it. I get his, but I would like to know
With
how much.
all due respect, Eric, it's not light taxation. Most likely, we will have to look at how much money it will take to um, put in place this plan, and the tax rate will depend upon that. But most likely, we will have a decent size income tax rate, at least 30%, and also we will have an extremely large business tax rate, assuming our economic system allows them. We are still debating on it within our constitution. If they are allowed in a limited form, corporate tax rates will probably be as high as 50%, maybe even higher. We'll also tax tobacco. We will tax the vast majority of drugs and psychedelics extremely high. We'll legalize them, so you can have them, but you're going to have to pay for them. Um, we'll have fairly high tariffs to fund not only these, but also not only the infrastructure and rebuilding plan, but also to fund hospitals and public programs. Um, yeah.
All right.
Hmm.
Reed, what's your viewpoint?
I think slight taxation is the best way to go. I personally agree with and concur with Commissar Ann Jackson's ideas. Though, I would like to ask, how will we ensure that these funds aren't used for the wrong purposes, like being embezzled or used for enriching the person who's in control of it, then giving it back to the workers? Because I clearly want to, like, how will you ensure that these funds will not be mismanaged by fraud and by scammers? Have you ever thought about that, to be honest? If that's a good
Um,
question for you.
Thanks. It is a good question. So, not only do we have several bureaus that and government agencies that will be dedicated to researching internal corruption and punishing internal corruption. But also, we need to have a strong court system so that is innocent until proven guilty. Um, and these courts, along with the federal law enforcement,
We're just trying to keep
um,
on. Let's keep it on the subject we're at right now for the how we're going to pay for these transportation.
Indeed,
We
comrade.
can get back. We can get on to another time about the court system, the justice
Yes.
system later. But for right now,
Now we
let's
need to like focus on the
we
topic.
just got to keep on the topic on how we're paying for these transportations. That's the main point right now. We will
Yes, that
in
that is very good.
another time get on the subject of uh, the justice that needs to be deserved on the traders of America. All right, the traders against the
Indeed.
CSA. But for right now, let's keep on the subject that we're at. But anyways, Fresh, you have anything to bring up real quick?
Okay. This is a little topic, but how do you two, since you're uh trying to sell your general secretary campaign, how do you feel about paying the troops that served during the Civil War and the troops that will serve beyond? Uh,
He's focused
that,
on the wages, like
yeah,
the wages
military
of the
wages.
military wages.
okay, thank you. So, in the past, we have seen that if you do not pay soldiers, it doesn't end very well. Um, uh, so, uh, uh, at least
Are you
I
trying to?
would
Are you trying to?
pay soldiers
Are you trying
fairly
to?
well.
Are you trying to get onto the subject of like a defense budget for the military? Like that's what you're
Excuse
trying to get
me,
to?
I will have to use the laboratory for a
All
bit.
right. Go ahead. Let Action read. You can take a break. But like, are you going to focus on a defense budget? Are you going to do a Department of Defense or something like that?
Well, yes, we will have a most likely it will be a commissariat. It depends. We are still debating our government structure, but some sort of department commissariat of war or defense. This will have this department or commissariat will have
All right,
a
but all
fairly
right,
large budget.
that gets to the point of one major thing I have. Are you gonna have some form of like some secret police or something cracking down on people and or watching people
No,
all the time? No, okay.
no.
All right, I'll keep you on that. Hopefully you don't. All right, I do. All right, continue. I'm sorry, but I have to check to make sure because there's been other places around the world that has been creating secret police, military police that we don't know about until people are gone and disappear, and we don't know why.
Yeah, secret police is secret police are the enemy of not only the people, but they're the enemy of democracy and the enemy of liberty. I think um, uh, secret
I'm
police
back.
are an unacceptable thing. That secret police can never,
Okay,
ever
all right.
be allowed to
I
exist
have
in this year.
I understand where you're getting at. But let's continue like on the budget then. I just had to ask you that because you were bringing out about creating the system of the like a Department of Defense like America, United States of America had. But um because United States of America had a secret police during the war, and it was arresting people left and right, and it, convicting them of false crimes. And that's why I was just bringing that up, because we don't want to go down the same path that United States of America has
Well, yes,
during the Civil War,
of
and
course.
that's the only
We would
reason
not
I'm.
want a third one as well.
Um,
That's true. That's true, Reed. But that's
the
why I had
military
to
would
bring that up.
be
I had to bring that up because what you're bringing up, and continue on the wages of the military. So how are you going to pay them? And
well, obviously, the higher taxes
so
will
more
pay them,
taxes.
and
So, but you say you're not doing taxation because you believe in taxation is
that
death.
um, I did not say that. That was the current General Secretary, John Jack Reed.
Uh,
I am not of the opinion that taxation is theft.
okay, okay. I misunderstood. My bad. I had the wrong thing. I will get on Rito about that. But go ahead, continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
So, the
Continue.
military, we will have. It is of my opinion that we need a strong military to protect ourselves, not only from enemies of America, but also enemies of socialism, and possibly even to protect the revolution abroad,
Uh,
in places like Indochina and
But
currently in the
that gets
second
on the
system.
subject then, because this is getting a lot out of hand. I would like to continue on the subject on it, but is it really our job to intervene with other nations' problems? Because it's not our problem uh, to help other nations when we need to focus more on our own
Mhm.
people first. Our people are more important right now
Yeah.
after the war.
I think I
So
think yes, that is fair. But I do think if you are to ignore our allies, um,
Well,
or
no, no.
at least a threat,
I understand you want
um,
to. I understand you want to help our allies, like the British, um, and keep them going. But we do have our own people provide first over them.
well, yes, and they will be the priority. And I'm not saying the military will get a significant portion of the budget. I'm just saying the military, a strong military is necessary to prevent invasion from foreign powers,
Uh,
especially
I understand. I understand that. All right, continue.
um, we have made a lot of enemies because of our ideology, especially our northern neighbor, Canada. And we need a strong military to protect ourselves.
Wait, so
And
you're expecting the King Edward is gonna do something to intervene with us and go against us while we're struggling to uh, form a better nation of the CSA.
I think it, um,
Like you think that he's gonna intervene against us?
I think it's a possibility,
It's a
and we need
plausibility.
to
Okay,
decrease
okay.
it.
All right, I'll get on that subject a little bit later, but go ahead, continue. Continue on the wages.
Um, well, so I think at least I've covered the wages of the military fairly well.
Okay, okay.
Um,
If if you do, that's fine. I can get on to Reed on now. Reed, what are you gonna do with the wages? Uh, are you gonna form some form of
I
Department of Defense or anything like that?
I think a Department of Revolutionary Defense is important for the protection of our syndicalist nation against our reactionary neighbors. Now, if I am totally for what Jackson has said, but to be honest, we need a strong military. We need a strong militia. We need strong syndicalist militias that can organize and effectively mount a
So
defensive military to
you want to
protect
form
our allies.
you want to focus more on a militia, Reed, than a actual stand up army. Like you want to.
I think a standard army can be great for protecting our fellow comrades in arms abroad and at home. But the militias will do that, the internal
So
stuff. If
all
in
right,
the
so
case of a riots,
you want two forms of groups. You want to like some form of like a national guard. That's
yes, like a Red National Guard.
okay, and then you have a actual standard army. So what are you going to focus more on? Like where people should be at more. Like you should should we have more people as like temporary militia, more people in militia, or more people in the active army?
I think we should have people who are willing to serve in the People's Liberation Army,
Well,
and more
I
people
understand
who
that,
are
but do you want people to join a militia? Like everybody has to like a required service to the militia. Like a everybody has to join some form of temporarily service years in the military,
yes,
like a national guard, or you want to run
maybe
a everybody has to actually service in the active army?
I think I will have young kids as much as like 18 to after they finish um, mandatory education to go to the militias to serve
Okay, so you want
the,
everybody to serve in the
You're
National Guard?
advocating for children to serve in the
the Red
militias?
National
No, no,
Guard.
he said 18 and
Yes,
above.
sir.
He said 18 and above.
Oh,
After
okay, okay. I
after
was
the
just making sure.
yeah, I
It's unfair
understand. Fresh.
conscription.
Yeah, I was just
It's optional conscription. I believe that it's optional for you to be
Oh,
conscripted,
optional?
or you
Optional.
can
optional.
All right,
join
that's better.
You can voluntarily
Oh,
join.
okay, okay, that sounds a lot better. Okay. Um. All right. So how are you gonna pay for it? Like that's the main point of the wages.
Wages, however, I
Like how are
believe
you gonna fund
wages.
the military? Like, are you gonna create a
The military
department?
will be funded by industry. It's an army of industry and solidarity.
But that doesn't
Therefore,
explain how you're gonna earn the wages of the income to pay for the soldiers.
they can earn the wages of the income from the Central Committee because it's our obligation to help the soldiers who fought alongside us in the Civil War.
Okay.
Like that's our obligation.
Can you give me like a estimate how much they're gonna get paid for? Like,
Approximately like
are we gonna have like a standard growth per rank? Like,
mm,
a private be paid less than say a captain?
I think they should all be paid equally. I think they if you want to have 50, 100, $1,500, then you can basically be paid
That's
like
really
that.
high.
But if
That's really extremely high for today. That's extremely high for wages. Are you saying
Jesus,
that for biweekly or are you saying that monthly?
like monthly,
Oh, okay.
like so we
That
can
sounds reasonable if you say monthly.
monthly pay, so we cannot overextend that budget of $101,500 to prevent overspending. We don't want that. We want to have a budget that controls the amount of wages being put on the soldiers so they can be paid equally without having to overstretch the budget to its extent.
I have a question, John Tech Reed, General
Yes, sir.
Secretary. Is this the official stance of your party, or is this just your personal uh,
This is the extent of
preference?
our party. I'm doing this on the behalf of our party.
Are you gonna go through Congress for this, or are you gonna do an excessive
Yes,
order?
I'm going to do this for the Congress of the Syndicates.
So you're gonna go through the House and the Senate to get it approved.
Oh, wait, we still have
Yes,
executive
sir. I
orders?
believe it's up to them to decide whether or not to make it into law or to reject it. But I
Well,
suggest it will go very well.
fresh like excessive order doesn't like he can still be the excessive orders can
Yeah, I understand
they
that, but I thought such a
I
system
would
would be
prefer an
abolished with
excessive
the
order.
revolution.
well you can still have some form of it that has to go through the House and Senate to make sure that it's not abuse of power because you have check and balance, right? Fresh, like we have check and balance that makes
Of course. But
it,
then what's the point of it?
that he can implement it so he doesn't have to start exactly right through the beginning. He can create it through himself and then push it through the system and start at the bottom and then they get it approved instead of actually go in and focus on exactly with them. So he's not working with one or both houses. He has to do his individual himself, and then he applies it into the system first. So he creates it
Yes, sir.
first, and then he
I guess
put
I can see that.
because if he works with the House or the Senate, he can manipulate the system, and they can push it through exactly how they want it.
Mhm.
So we're trying to avoid the quid pro quo. We don't want a quid pro pros, right? Reed, we don't want this quid pro pro.
Yeah.
So the president should have the right to create laws, but he can't implement them right off the bat. He should have uh, the possibility to create the
Yeah.
law and then
Sorry
work through the
about
House and
that.
the Senate, and then it has to go through those after he writes it, and then it goes to his desk. But I think the president should have some form of capability to do federal spending only for the federal system. If it is only towards the federal system, like the military,
Yeah.
he should have the right to do some form of budget on it with the House and the Senate, just not by himself, or just with the House and Senate. All right. Well, we're gonna take a small break. 5 minutes, and we'll be right back,
Yeah,
guys. Thank you.
indeed.
Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Jackson. Be right back, guys.
Well, I'm listening to all this
Oh,
gold.
all right. Welcome back, guys. I'm here with formal General of the Army Ham. He's now the Vice Chairman. Ham, you want to introduce yourself more?
Yes, no worries. Yeah, so I was of course head of the army after the CSA was established. I've also been a very significant member within the American Labor Party, and now currently the vice chair of the American Labor Party and an active uh, delegate in the Revolutionary Council.
All right. Thank you. So earlier we were asking Reed and Jackson about what their policy is going to be. I have a
hmm
few questions about your policies. What are some of your policies? Like, uh, are you going to do social programs, safety nets, or anything like transportation policies? Like, I'd
hmm
like to hear them out.
Yes, absolutely. So we did at the beginning of the Constitutional Convention, we of course proposed our own American Labor Party constitution. Of course, this is all currently being voted on now, but to list a few things, of course, we'll have, I'm sure this is in many proposals, but guaranteed housing. We have something I believe is somewhat unique to us called what we have the social domestication of labor. Uh, so it will be fully recognized and will be fully paid for. Um, of course, a whole rebuilding, reconstruction of a new Red America, increasing, of course, funding for things like the military and welfare, having sort of uh, like a market, not as in a free market, but an actual, like a supermarket of you get your bare essentials, you'll have your bread, you'll have your milk, your eggs, your essentials,
Wait.
and so on and
Oh,
so
hold
forth.
on. On that subject, you just bring it up. Are you trying to do
hmm
plan economics?
Yes,
Okay, so
absolutely.
you want to form a some form of a plan economics. Okay. Continue.
hmm Yes, absolutely. So more on that is that so a lot of people have a lot of assumptions about what our policy is. They all think, oh, centralization means one person at the top, and so basically, what we stand for is saying, hey, let's get let's get all this power that we have. We can create with all the factories joint together, put together an actual mode of production to reach a post-scarcity society that, of course, somebody we admire, Karl Marx, said. And so we thought, well, this is the best way. Let's organize all the unions together. Let's have all the workers be represented and organize all the factories and gear them into one mode of production, whether that be, we'll have all the military factories start producing guns,
All right.
weapons,
Hold
their
on.
own and so on. Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I want to intervene real quick. All right. So
hmm
you want them all be a republic? Are you saying they all run as like all as one? Like all the people work as one, and they all could decide as together as a republic to vote what they want to build, or should we? Or are you trying to say each factory does their own planning?
Well, what we want is basically what we'd have in our ideal sort of government, where the workers would be elected to one body, and this would be representative. So they would be representatives from all around the country. Um, and then from these representatives, you elect your base leaders. So you have
All
your
right,
head of state,
the
head of government,
representatives.
so
Okay,
on.
all right. For the
hmm
representative, are you going to do that for each state has their own representatives for the factories, or are you going to say as a whole country?
So we wanted to mix in both geographical representation. So we wanted to somewhat keep the state structure that we have, so there is some autonomy. I'm not going to enforce, uh, a New Yorker's policy over somebody in California. Of course, we still want some of that representation. However, there is more emphasis on, well, you as a worker, you have to vote for somebody that you want in government rather than somebody who is just from the same place as you. So ideally, you would vote for somebody who has better policies. And even if they're not from your state or from your town or from your city, like you can say, oh, I know they're representing my best interests
So you are
in
saying you want
Congress.
state foundation, like you want the each representation legal to their own state. Like so, you have the state workers vote for the
Mhm.
state representatives to represent their factories for each individual state.
Yes.
Okay,
And
that's
each,
all I'm trying to
yeah,
clarify. It's just, okay, so you want state foundation. Okay, so each
yes,
individual state
absolutely.
has their own representation. Okay, all right. I'm just trying to clarify. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, and so like through that, we will also have overseers from the government making sure that there isn't any abuse of the workers. That these cooperate, like if you work in a cooperative or if you work in a democratically controlled factory, that they cannot democratically bring back in capitalism. Of course, you're not going to say, oh, there's going to be a boss who owns the factory now. That's not going to happen. um,
Yeah,
so
because
we want.
like you said, you want to
Mhm,
keep it as a republic. I agree with you. We should have representation by the republic of the people. The people should have the
mhm,
right who should be leading the group for each factory. So, yes, I agree to that. Okay, continue.
mhm. Yeah, and so essentially after that, you with the factory, you have basically the workers who can, like, of course, who all collectively own a factory, for example, or a workplace doesn't have to be necessarily a factory, where they each elect their own managers. And in the managers, it doesn't mean the same thing as managers meant before, but managers just mean in this case, it just means if you are elected as a manager position, you will try and get the most output out of your workers. Uh, and they're elected from the workers. So like they're somebody that the people know, while the workers will just like figure out in terms of how to best work with maximum production, but also maximum safety standards as well.
Okay, one second.
No, no, no worries.
I'm just writing that down quick.
No, no, absolutely, no, absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Um,
So how are you gonna, how are you gonna fund these programs? I enjoy these, but how are you gonna fund it? Like, how are you gonna do some form of taxation or some forms of subsidy programs, to help fund these systems?
No, that's a fair question. I think everybody should know in terms of where we're going to get the budget for something like this, and that's fair. Um, the budget question has not been discussed within the party just because of we're trying to cooperate with the other parties in terms of uh, just trying to reach a consensus. But my own personal view, this doesn't. I'm clarifying. This does not represent the views of everybody who is a member of the LP. That I would be in favor of a flat tax for everybody. And I would propose a flat tax for the poorest being around 10% of what they earn.
Wait, wait,
Um,
wait. Are you saying flash tax like everybody pays 10%, or are you gonna?
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
so
because
flat
it
tax
sounded
for
like you were
everybody.
about to say like the low paid workers are gonna get taxed less than the higher workers.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, that was
Okay,
my bad.
okay.
Flat
So
tax?
yeah, that's what he's
Mhm.
saying in flash text. But when he's trying to explain it, it sounded like he was trying to not do flat tax.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
sorry,
okay.
Because
I should have clarified.
yeah, that's why I had to hit you real quick on it because it sounded like you were being a little off on it. So thank you
hmm
for clarification. Okay.
hmm Absolutely. And no, yeah. So basically, a lot of I think a lot of people underestimate how much a flat tax really brings in terms of money. And here's the thing: on top of the flat tax, of course, if you're not earning anything, of course you don't need to pay tax if you're not earning. There's no point in taxing you. I'm not going to tax you for your pennies. However, like again, through a program, we have what we propose is job guarantees for everybody, so that the government, whether it be state or federal government, will have some sort of job program, whether it's a labor, mental, or social job, for you to fill in. So this is things like road construction, or say mining, or steelworks, dock works, so on and so on. Uh, so we want to employ as much as the population, just to give them that sense of security in living, and know that if they, for some reason, if they have a discrepancy with their factory or something, of course they can, send something into the government and say, hey, like, I don't like the way they're doing this. I don't want to work here anymore. And we'll say, hey, we have another job for you somewhere else. So we're trying to guarantee that security.
So, all right, on the roads, are you gonna focus on highways or just plain interstate roads?
Right. So of course, after the whole Civil War fiasco,
Yeah.
uh, we there's still a significant portion of the country that really needs to be rebuilt. Because I mean, of course, we wanna pay attention to the main roads and highways,
Oh,
connecting our major cities.
that's what I'm trying to clarify. Are you gonna focus on just interstates or highways, or are you doing both? Are you gonna be creating new highways and new interstates?
Like what we want to do right now is to just try and repair everything that we have. I think that's the most important thing we need. I mean, like New
Uh,
Orleans right now is flattened. St. Louis is flattened.
yeah,
We have a
that's what I
lot.
wanted to ask.
Exactly,
Is there gonna
because
be
oh, sorry, go
a
ahead.
special like a special program or some such or something special for the South in particular because it's been destroyed so badly due to
Mhm.
this war?
Absolutely. So I've been like we there's been some minor discussion of this in the government, but
Hello, hello. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go. I'm just gonna correct something quick. Go ahead. Continue.
oh, no. That's no worries, no worries. So we minorly discussed this, but my hope is to contact the intellectuals around the countries in
All right.
terms of urban
Sorry.
infrastructure.
Hello,
There are a
Jocelyn.
lot
Hey,
of
knock.
good ideas in terms of how to rebuild uh, infrastructure and urban infrastructure in terms of actual planning, in terms of let's build the city not for the capitalist and the slumming workers all around, but let's build it for everybody. Let's make sure that the roads and the trains and the shops and the and whatever else works for everybody, and it is not service to goods and almost chattel slavery. So in this sense, we want to, in terms of rebuilding the South, at least. I think we don't want to rush it. I don't want to just rebuild St. Louis as it was. I don't want to rebuild Louisville or any other city as it was. I would ideally want to build an entirely a new city for workers, for a new humanity, if you will.
Hmm.
That's sort of what I think what this government should do in aiming
Is that
to
the
in reconstruction.
official official stance of your party as well?
As far as I know, no. Again, because we haven't adopted an official stance, just because uh,
Oh,
we are still cooperating with the other
I see,
parties,
I
and we
see.
didn't want to. We didn't want to
Anger anyone.
do any. Yeah, we didn't want to. We didn't want to. Touch any or stand on anyone's toes for anything like
Right.
that. So it's. But I think we're all in agreement in terms of we should definitely of course we should rebuild the South and we should rebuild the cities. But I think there is major opportunity that some people are missing.
Hey, Mr. Flesh, take over real quick. I'll be right back. Continue asking him these questions. I have to take a 5 minute break.
All right.
Continue asking questions.
So is there any official stances your party has on the military specifically?
Yes. It's funny you bring that up. That was one of the last things the American Labor Party wrote on and made a draft on. And so we of course want a strong military to protect what we have. I think it is
All right.
essential for any socialist government to because what I think what a lot of people need to realize, those who want a very very much decentralized army, is that anybody who isn't in the international, which is most countries,
Out in the
uh,
world, yes.
yes, out of the entire world, yeah, uh, want our country dead. Like that's
Basically.
just a fact. Like the fact is that whether it's Canada, whether it's Germany, whomever, uh, they know, like, their capitalists can know, oh, if the CSA falls to capitalism, that's so much more business for us. Blah blah blah. We need to exploit all these workers. That's such a good source of income. They will do anything to overthrow our government just to get just to get uh, just to get some sort of profit. Um,
Of course, of course.
so of course, army being an external arm of the government, of course it should be well funded, and I think it should be derived from very strong authority. I think one of the things that we learned in the revolutions of 1917 in Russia, that you cannot have a sort of like too decentralized army with political sorry, not political offices, with like political elections and things, uh, because it'll just get too disorganized. And of course then, if you're in the midst of battle, that's the most you know it's the most
Important thing.
disorganized thing. It's going to end in ruin. And when you
Yes,
need
yes.
exactly, it's the one time you need really good authority to move on and commit to your operations. So yes, absolutely, we need a big and strong military derived from the powers of government, or if we have a president or a chair or chancellor, of course they should be head.
The
So to keep
General Secretary.
the general secretary, but of course I'm talking about the Constitutional Convention and whatever
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
out of that.
All right, sorry
Um,
to interrupt. I'm back. Just
oh yes.
I was dealing with real life things with my son.
Hmm.
My mother was explaining something when I was with my son at the park. So sorry.
No worries.
I was having a little, thinking he got bit or something by a spider or something. So
No worries.
all right, sorry. Continue.
Oh, all right. I have another question. It's about this is coming from the former director of the BRP, and
Hmm.
one of the militiamen, Sergeant Leo, uh, multiple reported partisan attacks across the combine syndicates. How do you feel about these, especially in areas like the South and New England?
Hmm. Yeah. So I of course, again, have to stress this is not a party stance. This is just my own stance. However, I believe that the way there are two ways to deal with uh, violent partisanship uh, in this case. So I would say, and we have to do both of them. And one of them is uh, we need a re-education program. We need to get these people, off the streets or off the gangs they're in, and whatever political orchestration is going on behind the scenes. We need to get them in and say, hey, listen, like, this isn't your fault why you're here. You'll think that we're the devil, we're not. Like, let's explain how we got here, and why we think this like socialism, and why trade, in this case for most CSA delegates, is why trade unionism, or why our socialism is liberating you. Like, like you were exploited by a boss once. I mean, I think that's the one relatable experience everybody has is, oh, you work in
Yes.
a job and you work 12 hours a day in the hot sun or in the coal mines, and you get almost nothing for it. You could work for 50 years and get almost nothing for it. So I think we hit that
Exactly
the
what
second
happened to
stage.
them during the war. They got nothing for their fighting.
All right,
Exactly.
all right. That gets to
Oh,
the
sorry.
point. Are you gonna focus on some wage, like that people are gonna get some form of wages, like
Mhm.
say minimum wage system, or like there has to be some form of wages to all the workers, like they have to get paid at least this amount.
Yeah. So again, so like in terms of a wage system, I think this is definitely a party platform where we eventually, I'm not saying right now or in 10 years or so on, hopefully when the Kaiser is deposed and the king up north is dead, um, that we can abolish wages entirely, and then people that can actually get paid what their labor is worth.
So
Um,
you want to intervene against the Kaiser and King Edward?
I'm not making a statement. I'm just saying some point in the future the Kaiser will not exist. Same thing with the king in Canada, is that
It
if
is
if
inevitable.
it is inevitable, the
So
like it is.
you're just basically advocating for they should be uh, demolished. The government system should represent more to the people. It should be more of a republic than a monarchy.
Well,
Well,
I
I think
mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, I think he's trying to say is that like we're all socialists here, so it should be like that everywhere.
Well, yeah. You want to change the government. That's what you're trying to. You want the government to change. I'm not saying you gonna change the government. You just advocating for change. You want Germany and Canada to not be monarchy, but rather represent the people as socialism.
Yeah, and my main point is that is Marx clearly outlines this in his works,
Okay.
uh, where he or it because of
I know Marx's viewpoints, but I want to know yours. I'm not looking for Marx.
absolutely,
I want to know your viewpoint.
absolutely. So basically, what I was trying to say with that is that because of the capitalist exploitation of the worker and how they will always try and find new ways to exploit the worker will at some point overthrow their capitalist masters, whether in success or failure. They will try,
All right.
and they
Well,
will always try. That's
I
what I
did
was
get
trying to make the
I
point.
did get a message from the higher ups of
Mm-hmm.
they wanted me to ask you what about Russia?
What about it?
Oh,
Exactly.
they want to bring back the Tsar.
Ah, yes, Russia. Well, um, honestly, I think for them, the Tsar was at least partially after the minor civil war, where the Bolsheviks
The Red October.
lost.
You're saying about the Red
Mhm.
October.
Yeah, exactly. I think people wanted some sort of stability after the Civil War, and maybe they romanticize the whole period of the Tsar. Um, and I imagine like there there will be and there has been some significant concessions given to the proletariat or the workers in this case.
All right.
Um,
This then at least is my one last question for me, except if Fresh has more. Are you going to create some form of a departments like the Department of Defense or some secret uh,
mhm,
organization like a secret police that spies on other nations or on its own people?
mhm. Right. So okay. So I think it's almost essential. I mean, I think it would be naive to think to not have some sort of internal security as well as an external security. just because it's. I mean, I
Well, like, are
think
you advocating then for a Department of Defense and a secret police, or just the Department of Defense and not a secret police?
Well, ideally, I don't think the way that we think of police, especially in other parts of this country.
How would you
Uh,
describe it then?
well, I mean, ideally, the police, like whether they're quote unquote secret or not, um, should of course come from their own communities. And of course, a lot of police from the South, a lot of the police departments in the South came out of slave catchers. So they are accountable to nobody. So we want to, of course, replace those systems. Of course, those systems aren't in place now because we overthrew the United States government. Um, However, I think it's important to realize that, well, we'll need some sort of, like we need an expansion of agencies like the BRP, or the CPR. So in case, I mean, literally, we were talking about violent partisanship earlier in the South and in New England. I think it's essential that we don't have that. Literally, it's good to prevent violence that would hurt families and regular people just trying to go about their day when somebody can get a machine gun or a Tommy gun and shoot a bunch of people. I think we should prevent that in many ways as possible. Of course, I'm not saying infringe on civil liberties. I'm saying, oh, hey, look at these people. Like, are they trying to overthrow? Are they trying to commit treason against the CSA? Let's do something about that. I
All right,
don't think that.
because you almost had me there for a sec, because I was about to ask you a question about the people who has the right to bear arms, because you just
Mhm.
answered that question when you say you don't want to stomp on people's civil liberties of owning. All right, Fresh, do you have any other questions to ask um, formal general of the Army, Ham?
Not in particular. Uh, yeah, nothing on my mind right now.
No worries.
All right, thanks, thank you, Vice Chairman
Yeah,
Ham.
thanks for being here.
Here, yes, and it's been really grateful. I think we're pretty good through for tonight. We'll catch you guys on the next time.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, have a good one, Ham. All right,
Cheers.
thank you. This has been a great night. Having on
Yeah, great.
uh, Admiral Jackson, Sergeant Leo from the militia, and acting John
General
Reed.
Secretary
Yep,
Jack Reed.
and then formal and vice chairman uh, Ham. All right.
Ham.
Yep. Have a good one, guys. See you next time on the show. All right. This will be Socialist Network, Socialist News Radio. Have a good one. Thank you.
So